Good evening, race fans, and welcome to Podium Esports coverage of the fourth race in the first round for the 2021 eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series, live from the virtual Talladega Super Speedway just outside of Talladega, Alabama in Lincoln. James Pike, the voice of Podium Esports here, alongside our team of broadcasters for this evening, Josh Lee, Jeff Piccone, and our producer Ryan Bauer, with cameras this evening provided by Dougie Beard. Josh, this is the biggest, the baddest, the fastest track in all of NASCAR, and one that these trunks regularly visit in real life every October, but this is a bit new for the Road to Pro. We've not been to Talladega in some time, and traditionally it's Daytona that opens up the season. That's usually the one restrictor plate race that we get each year. Now it's the other restrictor plate track, and it's in the middle of the season, so the dynamics could be a little bit different tonight.
And it's going to be a tough one because this is the largest racetrack we have been to this season. We started out with two intermediates, went to the short track of Richmond's 2 weeks ago, and now we're here at the gigantic 2.66 mile Talladega Super Speedway and pack racing as well. It's going to be a big change, and there's a lot of drivers just trying to get through tonight with a solid finish, try and keep their truck clean. But everybody knows that big one is going to come in. The question is, when will it in the 100 laps we have tonight?
We talk about it every time we come to Daytona or Talladega, but I think it does mean more a little bit here, just because, Jeff, if you end up getting caught up in that, there's not as much time to make up any deficit that you pick up from a bad finish here. You had the whole season to fix whatever happened at Daytona back in past seasons of Road to Pro, but this time around, you only have a handful of races to make sure you're in the top 70 in points before we hit the cutoff mid-season.
You are absolutely right. It's very stressful for these drivers, I can guarantee you that, because Talladega, it's a wild card. And not only is it anyone can win, anyone can be taken out. So you can have the greatest race of your life, you can lead 99 of 100 laps, but if you get taken out at the end and finish 35th, that's where you're going to end up finishing. So you have to be very careful. This race is a war of attrition. You have to survive until the end. And it's not a question of if, it's a question of when the big one is going to strike.
Let's take a look at where we are in the world, courtesy of our friends at Google Earth. We're actually not terribly far away from Birmingham, Alabama, one of the largest cities in the state. Head about 30 minutes to the east up the interstate, and you will find Talladega Super Speedway, the biggest, the baddest, the fastest track of them all. 2.66 miles, 4.281 kilometers. And remember, that start-finish line is moved over down past the exit of Pit Road. One of the big differences that Big Bill France put in when he built this track in 1969. It opened up 10 years after Daytona International Speedway, and they wanted to come in and just change things a little bit and make it different. And so we see that start-finish line's a little bit further down, and there are people who can be leading at the top end in the center of the tri-oval, Josh Lee, that might not be in front when we come that extra few thousand feet.
And we've seen that so much in real life as well. That final pass for the lead on the white flag lap. Normally at Daytona, you only have that one short shoot from turn 4 to the start-finish line to do it. Here you have all the way through the tri-oval, and that extra real estate on the racetrack has shown to be important in the past when it comes to the real life and in the sim when all the C fixed, B fixed, A fixed, and all the other series come here to Talladega. I would not be surprised if we see that here tonight. Usually we see a lot of drivers get aggressive on the white flag, so it's going to be interesting to see how that last lap goes, because there's a lot of drivers in this field who are going to hold back for 99 out of 100 laps, and on that final one, turn up the heat and try and go for a win.
Now, I think one of the more interesting dynamics of this race in particular, given where we are with the development of the sim, is that this package is actually a little bit different than the Cup package, and usually they race pretty similarly between the two different sets of cars, but in the March build, the Cup package for restrictor plates got a major overhaul, addition of brand new CFD and fluid dynamic data, completely changed the way that those cars race in packs, but that transition has not happened with these trucks. So these trucks still race with what we could call colloquially the old draft package, Jeff McConey. And I wonder if there are going to be some drivers who've been bouncing between the two classes to play with iRating or what have you, and maybe they get tripped up and maybe forget which package they need to be working with.
I think that's definitely a possibility, but I think everyone's also going to be quite happy with this. There seems to be mixed reviews, to say the least, of the new aero package here on iRacing. People feel that it's a lot more difficult to make passes up in the Cup cars versus these. You can really get a run going. You can get a massive run on someone and slingshot right around them and get a really good run past 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12 cars even. There have been times where I've seen single cars, single trucks go all the way up on the outside all by themselves and make a run work. You can do that on this package that they have in sim right now. What you can't do, however, is side drafts like people have been doing up in the Cup Series. I think we're going to see a little bit of that. People will try and side draft, and it's not going to work as well as they're thinking. In the Cup Series, you can get right up alongside someone, and you'll see it. It just pulls them right back. There's nothing you can do if someone's side drafting you. Versus here, you're not even going to notice. All you're going to hear is your spotter calling someone's close to you, but that's about it.
We mentioned the points implications that may result as part of the big one. I think the one thing that should be guaranteed is that we're going to see a break for the points lead, because Colin Keister and Derek Bordeaux come into tonight not only tied on wins, but tied on top fives as well. It's been a masterful start to the season of both of them. And Keister, I think, on like the 5th tiebreaker, has the points lead. It probably won't be that close at the end of the season, but we're going to see some separation there. I think it's Keister, Bordeaux, Parker Retzlaff, Brandon McKissick, and Ethan Lane, who all have experience at this level and at the eNASCAR Road to Pro Contender Series. So no surprise that we're going to see some folks bouncing around in the point standings at the end of this race. Take a look at the way this race will play out. Obviously, 2 laps of qualifying. 100 laps we are going to run this evening for 266 miles, 428.1 kilometers the distance. Fuel window of about 36 to 40 laps, depending on whether or not you're running in the draft or not. And 3 green-white checker attempts are available if we need them, as per the usual. So nothing too different about this race, save for the fact that this is Talladega. And it is time to go to the starting grid and tell you where your favorite driver will begin this evening. Jared Liebert puts his number 27 machine on pole with a fast time of 55.304 seconds. He's joined on the outside of the row by former Coke Series driver Cody Bias. Jordan Worth, Donovan Strauss make up that second row. Tucker Minter and Derek Bordeaux, co-points leader. Josh, going to round out the third row.
Anthony Burrows starts in row 4 on the inside. He had a tough time at Richmond, looking to bounce back here at Talladega. Dylan Alt to his outside. Justin Bolton, Brian Mercurio share row 5, rounding out your top 10. And Kevin King with Briar LaPrade in row 6. LaPrade had an awesome recovery drive at Richmond after just getting home from the hospital that day. Hopefully he has a better day today.
Yeah, called out a recovery drive. My goodness, he's got a teammate right next to him, Michael Fenleyson in 13th, Blake near 14th, Drew very near us. I always butcher that name, and I apologize profusely. In 15th, Larry Payson 16th, Tyler Severa will start at 17th. Parker Retzlaff won the first round, had a very, very strong showing here. He is always fast no matter where he goes. He will start in 18th.
It's your Freenage for you.
Freenage, gosh,
I can help the pronunciation a little bit, but more importantly, everybody from here on back, as you see these cars roll through on your screen, elected to not set a qualifying time, which any other track you go to outside the Daytona or Talladega, Josh, would be a little bit unorthodox. But here, it's not crazy to see that sort of card get pulled, because you'll see some people drive to the back and try and avoid the big one that you talked about so much already. Let's take a look at the track facts quickly before we go green flag racing. We are technically in Lincoln, Alabama. It was in the past listed as Talladega, Alabama, but Lincoln, Alabama. The rumor is that this is built on top of an old Indian burial ground, which may explain some of the wild races we've seen here throughout the years. This track is just a hair over 50 years old. It opened in 1969. It's a 2.66 mile, 4.281 kilometer circuit, the longest oval in all of NASCAR. 33 degrees of banking in the turns, 16 degrees in banking in the tri-oval, and 3 degrees of banking both on the back straight and in the legs that lead to the tri-oval, both entering and exiting as you come past the start-finish line of 100 laps of action this evening. Josh Lee, final thoughts, biggest thing you're looking forward to before we go green flag racing in just a few moments.
I'm looking forward to seeing the difference in strategy that we're going to have, because you mentioned a lot of drivers not electing to take a qualifying time to drop to the back. That's kind of the main discussion whenever the real life series come here, whenever we come here in iRacing. What's the best strategy, getting up front to avoid the wrecks or getting in the back to avoid the wrecks? Either way, wrecks will happen, and usually they're going to start in either the front or the back, but that middle portion is kind of no man's land. A lot of action goes on back there. Not a lot of people want to be there. They either want to go forward or go back, but the middle can be where a lot of action happens. Not only just passes, but also wrecks, and could cause the big one as the field comes down the super stretch during the pace lap, and we're getting ready to go green for 100 laps. This is going to be an exciting one, James.
You noticed the weather on your screen briefly just a few moments ago. 77 degrees Fahrenheit air temp, 106 degrees Fahrenheit track temp, winds to the east at 5 miles an hour, humidity of 40% in sim. Your current time is April 24th, 2021. This upcoming Saturday, right around 2:45 p.m. local time, which would be Central Time, if we ought to be precise. Jeff McConey, your final thoughts before we go green flag racing.
If I'm a driver out there in the middle right now, I'm getting to the back. It's time to just take care of the truck. That's what's most important. Another thing to keep an eye on, I think Briar LaPrade and Michael Fenleyson are going to have a really good night out here tonight. Briar, like we mentioned earlier, was in the hospital, and he came back and had a miraculous race, looking for one more position here this week, and he and his teammate have been very strong on super speedways up with their Coke program.
Set to go green flag racing for 100 laps here at the fastest track in NASCAR. We wait for Barney to unfurl the green flag and this field to thunder past the start-finish line and get us going. Green flag is out. We are underway with the fourth round of the 2021 eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series Top Split here on Podium Esports. In those opening 2 laps, you already saw some drivers make some moves in this pack to get out of the way of potential trouble. We saw our pole sitter slide back. We saw Jarrett Liebert go from 1st to 15th and get in line at the back end of this pack. But look at this group here, Josh Lee. It is all 5 of the Logitech G Altus esports machines in this field that are nose to tail at the very back of this field. I get shades of Joe Gibbs Racing a few years ago when they did this at Talladega and just survived. It wasn't necessarily a winning strategy, but if you want to make sure that you make it towards the end, this isn't necessarily the worst card to pull.
And it's 6 of them back there. I think that's all of the Logitech G Altus esports cars they have running in the Road to Pro. All here in the top split, all running together in the back, trying to avoid the incidents. And they're doing a good job of that right now. There was actually about 4 of them together, and then they dropped down onto the apron to find the other 2. So 6 of them now running together towards the back. But up front, it's Tucker Minterly in the way after Jarrett Liebert dropped back further in the pack. And on the top side, it's Jordan Worth working with Briar LaPrat, who finds himself up in 4th. Worth now in 2nd, getting a huge shove from the 35 as they try and get around Tucker Minter and Anthony Burrows, the 2 duo on the inside as they work turn 3.
Worth leading Briar LaPrat, who had that crazy race. He gets out of the hospital and gets into the Richmond race for this series 2 weeks ago and comes away with a podium finish, and now going to try and back it up with back-to-back podium finishes if he can maintain this for only the next 96 laps, Jeff McConaughey. So not impossible, but stranger things have happened.
Most certainly have, and right now he's up there all by himself. That 30 truck is going to come and try and give him some assistance, but something you have to keep in mind is Briar LaPrat and Michael Fenleyson, they race and with Lockdown, and they are fantastic at super speedways. They have a lot of success up in the Coke series. So right now what they are doing is they're carrying that down. They're trying to get Briar and Michael into the Coke series, and if they can get that done, that's going to be huge. Now this is, like I mentioned earlier, a wild card race, but take a look and you can start to see some of the trends here. Briar LaPrat flew all the way up to the front. Now he's starting to fall back a little bit, not really trying to force his way into line or anything. He could fall all the way back. He's looking now with Justin Bolton. He's having himself a solid run. Started in 9th, sitting in 10th. He's not moving around too much. But then you look a little bit further back, you see Jarrett Liebert, first all the way back to 15th. We're seeing some motion, and you're seeing who wants to be with who. This is where you start to make your friends, and you're going to be very thankful for them at the end, because if you just hang everyone out to dry, man, it's going to be a very, very long day.
Could be a very long day. So you see that first 15 strung out. And Josh, let's talk about a race leader a little bit, Jordan Worth. He's known as a very popular streamer here on Twitch, and his channel, I wouldn't necessarily say is the most serious of channels all the time. There's usually a lot of jokes that are thrown around, and when you watch Jordan on his streams, you don't necessarily expect him to be so quick, but don't sleep on him. He's got a 7,200 I rating, and when he really focuses in and locks in on a race, he can be very, very quick.
And he's showing that right now as he powered himself on the outside line to get up to the lead as he had help from the 35 behind him. And another duo starting to go to the outside looks to be the 13 of Brad Mahar going with the 54 of Kenny Brady. That black Toyota Tundra on the outside. Top 3 now broken away as multiple duos start to work their way up to the outside, but really nobody else. Majority of the field, pretty much everybody except for those 2 on the outside, are hugging that yellow line on the inside. Usually what we see in the NASCAR Cup Series cars is something similar to this, but up by the wall here in the trucks in iRacing, it's everybody training on the inside, but the outside seems to have something. Every time a duo gets up there, they work their way to the front. The 54 of Kenny Brady now side by side with the 20 of Jordan Worth looking for the lead as they head to the tri-oval.
Gonna need more help than that, though, to make that work. You can only get so far with 2 cars, and even though it was a great push for Brady and a great push for Tucker Minter, just not enough to get around the number 20 machine, and Worth will maintain his lead at the point with Anthony Burrows down on the bottom and Brad Mahar to the top side. Dylan Alt, that 4th car rather, in line just behind your race leaders. They're stringing out here, and everybody is single file, but we haven't lost too many cars, or trucks rather, off this lead pack. The only one that's lost the draft, Daniel Roper, racing for Amuka Esports. He is back over in turn number 4 as the leaders work their way through turn 3. So he will get lapped here in the next few laps, and it could be interesting to see them work their way around one lap car. You wouldn't think it would cause problems, but again, expect the unexpected when you come to Talladega. It's a pretty common theme every time we come here.
That it is. It's a very common theme. You never know what's going to happen, and Daniel Roper actually started all the way in the pits, so that's more of a defensive strategy. If he goes a lap down, that's okay. He'll find a spot with this lead pack. He'll be perfectly fine, and he'll just continue to sit in that lucky dog position. I think he'll be okay. I'm not opposed to that strategy there. Another thing that we're starting to see is you saw those 2 trucks. They made a big run up on the outside. They got right up to the leader, and then they pulled out of line. They went 3 wide for a split second and then fell further back. That's not these guys going up there, getting a run and losing it. That's these guys going up there, seeing what they can do. How long does it take us to get up to the front? How hard do we have to push it? Can we do this with 2 trucks? Things like that are what they're looking, are what they're testing out, excuse me, and they're seeing it now. Okay, lap 8. Let's go up. Let's see how far we can get. Can we get up to the leader? They're not going to try and take the lead. They don't want to be out front, wasting all this fuel and everything necessarily. So they're going to just sit back, fall back in line. Now they know it's in the back of their head. All right, that was pretty easy to do. We made a good run up there. I can work with this guy again, and I've got a good truck that can get up to the front. So keep an eye out. People are going to be trying different things. This is a good time to experiment.
A good time for the most part, and yes, there's nothing like building the notebook in races. And even though I feel like we see this every major plate race, both in sim and in real life, the package will change race on race, quarter on quarter. It's never quite the same. And always good to try and get that experience of making a run towards the front if you can. However, Josh, the one thing and the one variable that you can't replicate in this sort of situation is the level of intensity that comes up towards the end of these races. So you can push now and go hard now just to see what it's like and think you have a number, but for the most part, not everybody around you is racing as hard now as they will at the end of the race. And your numbers might not necessarily pan out exactly the way you draft them up here if everybody is going nuts in the final few laps like we expect.
And at the level that this racing is in the top split of the Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series, these drivers know they're not going to win the race this early. With 10 laps down, 90 to go, they know that if they make a move now, it's not going to be for the win. They have so much more time to do it. What they need to do right now is focus on surviving. You need to make it to the end of this race to even have a chance to win this race. And something that we talk about when every series comes to a restrictor plate track, the draft is the equalizer. Everybody has an equal opportunity. Setups may help you with raw speed, they might help you with handling, but getting in that draft and making moves in the slipstream is going to be the ends-all be-all with everybody in this field. At the end of the day, that's what's going to matter, how they work the lines. And right now, like Jeff was mentioning, a lot of drivers just testing out who they can work with, how that outside is working. And we see one car going on the outside. That's Daniel Roper in the 15. He'll get lapped, and it looks like he found his teammate Brad Mahar as he opts up to the top side. Mahar might be able to save his teammate from going a lap down here.
So this could be very interesting, and it goes right in the play that Jeff McConey pointed out a few moments ago. Look at the run that these two have as you see Mahar pushing Daniel Roper towards the front. They get a great shove to the middle of 3 and 4, and will Roper come down in front of Worth to lead this pack as a lap down truck? How interesting that would be. The inside beginning to get their run now, but they're not going to clear. They're going to stay tucked together on the outside and then cut down right in front of Jordan Worth. So Mahar is your race leader, but he's the second truck in line, and Daniel Roper, the truck actually leading this pack, is on the very tail end of the lead lap because he lost the draft early on in this race when we dropped the green.
I'd be lying if I said that wasn't a deal that I've made with my teammates and other drivers and everything else. Hey, I'm about to be a lap down. Let me lead, right? Let me stay in front of you. I'll take the fuel loss. You can sit behind me, sit in my draft. Just stay behind me. I'll take that, but just let me stay on the lead lap. That's a good teammate right there, and he even waited for his teammate to be clear. I'm surprised they pulled 2 trucks clear. That is phenomenal work, and that's something to keep an eye on. That's not easy to do in the top split of Road to Pro with some of the best drivers on the service. One of the most difficult races ever in iRacing history, and they just managed to pull 2 trucks clear. That's interesting.
Yeah, difficulty here in the Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series top split. I think we're getting used to standard 7K plus strength of fields, and tonight's no different. It's a 7.5K SOF. So you really do have some of the best. And in some cases, the top split of the Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series can have a higher strength of field than Coke Series races, which is wild to think about. But again, that's how competitive this series has gotten, because everybody ultimately wants a shot at the $300,000 plus prize pool that you see in the Coke Series when they race on Tuesday nights. The other thing that I think is worth noting, Josh, about that move that Mahar and Daniel Roper made.
Trucks to pit road, James.
Well, they pushed is, yes, we do have a few trucks to pit road. So interesting strategy here. It's near Retzlaff, Hocevar, Tucker, Hogan, that quintet all in for service now on lap 14. So I assume, Jeff Bocconi, if you're coming in now, you work this race backwards, and these trucks should be able to make it to the end on, what, one more stop, two more stops?
No, not by my math. We're looking at a max fuel window. If you're clutching and everything, I would be very shocked if someone went over 45 laps. I've heard of some people being able to do it. I've never seen it myself, but I don't really. I think this is banking on a caution here, because they're 15 laps in. Even if they do go for the rest of the run 40 laps and 40 laps and they max everything out, that still only takes them to lap 95. So I'm going to do some more number crunching here, see if I can't figure something out. But off the top of my head, that's a really interesting strategy for that team. They might be seeing something that I'm not.
Just spitballing as best I can, and by no means am I the math lead or engineer or boilermaker that you are, Jeff. But if you take those on lap 14 coming to 15, leaves you with, what, 85 laps to go. So you're going to be pitting twice. You're going to need yellows. You may end up having to pit 3 times. So it's interesting, to say the least. If you get the right yellow, it certainly can pan out, but you need to get the right yellow. I'm just not sure what that would be, as we see Jordan Worth pop to the outside with help from Anthony Burrows to retake the race lead and put Dan Roper back outside of that lead spot.
It's going to be interesting. They also could be banking on a caution when everyone's coming down to pit road. You're most likely to find a caution when everyone's pitting. Someone's bound to make a mistake. It's very easy for that to happen. We almost just had one there as Briar LaPrade actually bumped Jordan Worth right there in the corner. It's a little bit dangerous, but you can make it happen. So it could be a bit of a gamble on, we're going to have a caution that's going to fall in our favor. It's just a very interesting strategy, though. But hey, you got to swing for the fences.
Have to do everything that you can, as Worth is now back in control of this. LaPrade has the high line in his grasp, and he's got help from Tucker Minter, he's got help from Justin Reed, and he's got help from Garrett Conrath behind him. That trio trying to help Brian LaPrade get to the front. Get a good run, though, here in the middle of the tri-oval, which is where I think you'll want to be if we get a clean race to the end, which we may not. I certainly am not going to try and predict that kind of future with the amount of variables that we still have left to work through. But remember that when the Coke Series came here back in October, it was Eric Smith who got help it was Brandon Cattell who got help from his teammate Eric Smith, and those two came through the middle of the 3-wide pack to take the lead at the line and get Brandon Cattell that win. Same way we're seeing Justin Reed and Garrett Conrath push to the front now. They're using that middle lane to get to the front. So if you've got your trucks hooked up and lined up and bumpers latched on, I genuinely think the best place to be, if you can get there, Josh, will be that middle lane when we get to races end.
And it's looking a lot like Talladega did back. You can think back to 2009, 2011, those years of the tandem draft that we saw at Talladega and Daytona, where if you get hooked up, it's honestly more beneficial than running in a pack. Of course, not everybody's going to do that. It does take a tax on the motors. You can only do it for a certain amount of laps before that engine starts to expire. But using that tandem draft on the outside line right now seems like an awesome idea, especially if you want to try and lead some laps like we saw with Briar LaPrade, and now Tucker Minter in the 10 who's right behind him. Justin Reed in the 23 Nexus Esports Chevy trying to get around him, and he's going to have a little bit of help from the 40 of Tyler Severa in the pay-to-win Toyota Tundra up on that outside line. So the outside line looking a little good right now. Definitely not a lot of takers that I think we'll see later on, but the tandem draft still seems to be working up on that top side.
If you can push, these trucks have enough downforce to where they're much more stable, especially compared to the current Cup Series package that's been introduced to the sim as of the quarterly update that came out last month. There's a lot more give on these trucks, and you really can just beat the daylights out of someone's rear bumper and get them to the front if need be, in a way that you can't really do with the Cup cars anymore. The Cup cars tend to be much looser than these trucks, so we will see that, I think, come into play at some point down the line. It's just a matter of where, just a matter of when, as Brian LaPratt, he's your race leader down on that inside line. Help from Tucker Minter, help from Jordan Worth there. Green and yellow cars abound behind Breyer's Ledford Billiard Supply number 35, the Lockdown Racing driver, which of course, partner with NASCAR Cup Series driver Anthony Alfredo. It was an easy connection, Jeff McConey from the Northeast. You'll know that very well as a Massachusetts native yourself. But Zach Novak, who races for Lockdown in the Coke Series and Richmond Raceway Esports, also happens to be a Connecticut native like Anthony, so the partnership was very natural there, and it has blossomed into a full deal with Anthony and a little bit of front row involvement with Lockdown Racing. So that's where that stylized number 35 comes from. It's the exact same style of number that you'd see front row run if they were properly represented in this series with their own team.
That it is, and like you said, it was the hometown connection. Anthony is very heavily involved in iRacing. He really got into it about 2 years ago, and ever since then, he's just been wanting to be as involved as he possibly can be. He's an amazing driver, an amazing person, and he genuinely does help these guys out. He will work with Breyer, he'll work with Zach Novak and everything else. It was Zach and Jimmy Mullis that work with him all the time for the NASCAR Pro Invitationals. I think it was Zach spotting for him last night. So Front Row Motorsports, by extension therefore, is involved, and that team works very hard. Lockdown Racing, they work incredibly hard behind the scenes to make things happen. They've got 4 drivers up in the Coke Series, looking to add a few more here, and Breyer LaPratt doing a really good job of it so far.
And Breyer's been somebody who's been near the top of a lot of different lists when it comes to oval drivers on iRacing for a long, long, long time. Somebody who has experience in this series, somebody who has the ability to compete in the Contender Series, and I think this is the year that he circled where he really wants to make a run so that when we get to the fall and we get to the Contender Series, not only is he there, but he'll have help either from his teammates on the box or from teammates that might be racing that series with him. Michael Finlayson is also part of the Lockdown organization. He could lend a hand if he too could qualify for the Contender Series, and they can make a proper push to the Coke Series and get the driver from Manchester, Tennessee into the big time for the first time in his career. He's right on board with Garrett Conrath just behind Jordan Worth. He's in this pack. You see a few trucks ducking out for it. As we approach the quarter length point of tonight's race. 23 laps we are working, coming up on 25, and nothing too wild here. Justin Reed and Tyler Sever have taken the lead, but we're just seeing some cycling here at the front, Josh. Not too much to worry about, just drivers making sure that they get some clean air on their nose, that they don't overheat the engine, that they don't put themselves in a position where they end up in trouble going forward. And so Justin Reed, your leader now, but he may shuffle to the high side, and it may be Severa that takes the lead in a few laps. And then Severa may bump to the high side, and it may cycle over again and again and again.
That's the product we're seeing of the tandem draft working as well as it is today, because every time somebody takes the lead using that middle line, outside line, they're in a tandem draft. They're able to go right on by. Michael Finlayson up into 3rd now, and he was back in 19th a short while ago and made it up there with little to no help. So it's going to be insane to see what Finlayson can do as we go on this race. But the two Lockdown Racing cars, the 36 and the 35, now together on the inside. If they want to make a run for the lead, they're going to have it a bit easy as those teammates can work together in their Ford F-150s. And we have a 6-car line starting up on the outside line now. It's spearheaded by the 42. I believe that is Dylan Alt. Yes, it is. So Dylan Alt leads in the 42. He has the 41, Brian Mercurio behind him. The 7, Drew Farina. Fariñas, the 29 of Kevin King, and a couple other stragglers towards the back, but we might see a definitive outside line starting to develop here, James Pike, as the field works through turn 2.
So who goes with them? Who sees that run? It's about a 10-mile-an-hour difference between these trucks up top and the trucks on the inside. Is anybody going to slide up and put the block? Now, you know it would come if this were the last lap, but as it stands, they're going to let Dylan Alt march this line straight to the front of the field, and he will go down to the bottom and control the inside lane just ahead of Justin Reed. So instead of Reed dropping back, it's Alt who jumps ahead, and that now leaves Brian Mercurio as the top truck on the outside. Other trucks in that group include Drew Fariñas, Kevin King, Garrett Conrath, and Parker White.
And that outside line is now fizzled back to about 3 cars as it happened just as quickly as it formed. It went all the way back into and shuffled into the bottom line, but still 3 cars holding strong on the outside. Now headed by Kevin King as Fariñas fell down, Alt fell down, Mercurio fell down. They now lead the field on the inside. It's Kevin King on the outside trying to keep that outside line alive, and they're going to take the lead. A huge push coming from King to get Garrett Conrath over the iRacing voice chat. He tells him he's clear, and down go those two, and that's going to leave Parker White in the 95 to come down, almost making contact with Brian Mercurio, but he gets down to take over P3. Now everybody back to single file. James, just as quickly as we saw an outside line come into play, it went right out of play, and all those cars are now up at the front of the field.
It's the most intriguing part of this race so far that we've seen in the first 30 laps. Jeff McConaughey, you really don't need that much help if your help on the outside is pushing well now, do you?
No, you do not. You can make some really strong runs happen with just 2 trucks. 3 trucks is typically where people want to be at. But I'll tell you what, you really only need 1 truck sometimes. It all depends on how everything comes together. Now, take a look, though. Everyone's starting to spread out. You see Michael Finlayson right now with a big run. He checks up a little bit. Look at that gap to his teammate behind him, Briar LaPrade. That's about 6 truck lengths. So now he could make something happen as he comes up, or they're starting to give each other a little bit of room because they know pit stops are coming up. It's lap 27. There's a couple different ways you can go about this. You can run it all the way out to lap, let's say 40. That's a pretty conservative estimate. Maybe 38. Run it to lap 38, then you pit 38, 76, and run it to the end. Or you split it up into 3 sections. You might as well. 33, you pit on 33, 66, maybe 67, and then you run it out to the end. You'd have enough for a green-white checkered, but after that, maybe not. So I think what we're going to see is run it out, get to the bottom of the tank, come in, take 4 tires, you might as well. Pit under green, you get 4 tires, fill the thing up with fuel, and then you go all the way again, just so you have enough fuel at the end so you can make the green-white checkers. That's what you're most concerned about, is making the green-white checkers should they happen. Because if they go green to the end, you know there's going to be a wreck later on.
Your general thought then, I guess, is to go 40-40-20. That you would think would be the standard strategy, but we're seeing alternates. And speaking of alternates, here's the group that came in not too long ago on that second pit strategy when we had that handful of cars come in. Saw it the same with all the Logitech Altus esports trucks. So they're back here, all 6 of them, if you can believe it, in the top split, and they are hanging out. This is 23rd on back to about, I believe, 33rd or so. Yes, I believe 33rd, maybe 30. Yeah, 33rd, I think, is the last truck in this group. So right on board with Boyd Hogan, who's also part of it. But they're all in here in their own separate group. I think maybe more so than trying an alternate pit strategy, Josh, just trying to avoid any sort of incidents at the front, because they fully expect them to come if they're racing this far back from the lead pack.
You mentioned it earlier. Think back to Joe Gibbs. I think back to Stewart Haas Racing, albeit they're at the opposite side of the field than Stewart Haas Racing was back in 2018, but still the same premise. They're all running together. This is an easy way to make sure that all of your trucks not only finish the race, but make it to a point where they can rally for a win. And I would not be surprised if we find all 6 of these cars at the front of the field come the last 5 laps of this race. So they're all running together at the back, hopping back up to the front of this field. It's Kevin King out in front with a mirror full of Garrett Conrath, and Conrath giving a huge shove now to the 26 of Kevin King as they go out in front. The 95 of Parker White following in their footsteps is Mercurio, who's leading this pack further back from them is now going to fall back. The 30 Larry Pace experimenting on the outside once more, but more of what Jeff McConey was talking about, space starting to be given. Not sure if Mercurio's going for a run or if those leaders just trying to separate themselves to go for a pit stop.
Pit stops are coming. We'll find out more in a few laps, but for now, we're going to go side by side. We'll take a break, but you won't miss any of the action as coverage of round 4 of the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series from Talladega Super Speedway continues on Podium Esports. Welcome back to Podium Esports coverage of the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series from Talladega Super Speedway. James Pike, Josh Lee, Jeff McConey, and Ryan Bauer bringing you the action from the fastest track in NASCAR with cameras provided by Thuggy Beard. Kevin King, your race leader, but here comes that run on the outside. Jeff McConey, it is the 30 truck on the move. Look at Larry Pace go.
Look at him go. He's looking to set the pace of this field up here as he's going to try and get clear of Kevin King, but right now they are dead even. He's got one truck helping him up on the outside. Problem is he's got about 10 or 15 down there on the bottom. So he's got that run going on the outside, a little bit of an advantage out there now. A push, but I don't know if he's going to get clear. Looks like the inside line's coming back to life.
Also, just so that the audience knows, Jeff McConey makes his own puns. We do not submit any for suggestion to his box. So that's all him on that one. As King continues to lead, and looks like Tucker Minter's going to fall out, so Larry Pace loses his help, and he will slide backwards. But again, it's the same deal where we're seeing so many trucks make that move to the top side and go. So it almost makes me fearful of how crazy the end of this could be, because we're going to have, maybe 10, 15 trucks, I figure, at minimum in the mix, and everybody's going to try and do that move and get to the outside at the exact same time. And my fear is, how much of a mess is it really going to be? Is one truck's going to come down pit road? A few are going to come down pit road here on lap 33, coming to lap 34. Parker White appears to be the first truck in line to come down pit road, but Justin Reed, Tyler Severa, Jordan Worth, Brad Mahar also in as well.
Where there's one, there's many. You want to stick with your friends, so you see one person say, I'm coming in, all of a sudden, everyone is going to follow them in. You got to stick with other people. If you get left hung out to dry here, that's the worst thing that could happen to you. Actually, the second worst thing that could happen to you. The worst thing that could happen to you is you get caught speeding on entry, because it's a 40-second penalty, almost a full lap that you have to sit there and wait and think about what you've done. So you just got to get in there. 55 miles an hour it sounds pretty easy to get down to. When you're going 200 to 55, a difference of 145 miles an hour, suddenly it's a lot more difficult.
Everybody in, and we'll see if there are any speeding penalties. I saw Larry Pace come in with a little bit of heat. Looks like Drew Freenosh is pretty quick to get on the brakes as well. We'll see if any of them have to serve any pit road speeding penalties. But most importantly, Jeff McConey, these are all coming a little bit earlier, the lap window that you indicated. You said 36 to 40. These cars and trucks, rather, are coming in on lap 34, coming to 35.
That's true. They're just splitting the race into 3 segments, so no big deal there. Just, I guess, better to be safe than sorry on running out of fuel. I don't think they would have run out, because you can get a couple more laps out of it. But one person comes in, the rest will go in. At that point, just split up into 3 sections. There's many ways to there's many ways to skin a cat. So you can just break it up into 3. You can run it out all the way to the end. Really doesn't matter. If there's a caution later on, you're going to come down for tires anyway. So break it into 3 sections, pit on lap 33, 34, so coming in again around 66, 67, and then run it out to the end.
So there's your standard pit strategy, pretty well lined up, at least for those on the standard strat, as your final 5 leaders come down pit road. And look who's going to go to the front. It'll be all those Logitech G Altus esports cars led by prominent Twitch streamer Michael Cozy Jr. WinVal 8820 if you want to find him on Twitch, up at the front in his number 99 virtual racing school Logitech G Altus esports Chevrolet Silverado.
And the top 6 sitting now still up front, all Logitech G Altus esports cars. Nobody's been able to punch in their bubble, so to speak, and really break up some of those Logitech G Altus esports cars. And they do this every once in a while. You see one car go up to the outside and pretty much get caught by the driver at the tail end of the field. So they're just rotating their trucks, making sure they all know where they can run and making sure their engines don't get too hot. So they just keep on going to the outside, dropping back, caught by the last car in line, and then they funnel back to the inside. But I find it interesting, Retzlaff, Hocevar, Keister, Tucker, a lot of the drivers who came in a little bit earlier on are all behind these guys, so we are quite literally just waiting on the Logitech G Altus esports cars to come into pit lane, and then we'll be all done with the first cycle of green flag pit stops. So we're just waiting on the team cars to come in. Everybody else has come in, and we're expecting Parker Retzlaff to take the lead, go to the point once those G Altus esports come on in. But it's still them up in the front as they work turn 3.
Now, technically, they already have come in for service 1, so I don't necessarily know if we count them as part of this main pit cycle or if they're just outright on their own alternate strategy. But for what it's worth, this is going to be the 26th lap that they complete in this run since they came down pit road. So you figure they've got about 10 to 15 more laps left of fuel, which would put them in right around the halfway point of this race on lap 50. And I will point out what you said, Josh, just a little bit ago with regards to the trucks ducking out of line. It looks very almost 2011 Aero tandem drafting-ish, where you're seeing these trucks intentionally duck out of line, and it's almost like for anybody who's watched cycling and watched maybe the Tour de France or the Giro d'Italia or the Vuelta de España, you know, you see your lead-out trains in the sprint stages where you get your team lined up just like this, and then you see one truck head to the outside and another truck head to the outside to sort of punch holes through the air, just as the cyclists punch holes through the air to make sure that their main sprinter, who will sit at the back of all this, is the one that gets the clean shot at the very end. They set him up. Not to say that that's going to be what the Logitech G Altus esports trucks do at the end of this race, but they've certainly been using a similar strategy to that, and it's a possibility that I don't think we can rule out at this time, Jeff.
Absolutely. I don't think we're going to see anything too crazy out of them. They've sort of already got their own little pit strategy, but yeah, keep cycling it around. I mean, they've got 29 seconds or so. I'm going to be interested to watch how much they pull away, if at all. So you're watching that gap between Hogan and Conrad. That's the key gap. How far is that between them? Right now, it's about 29 seconds. So looks to be like they're pulling away a little bit. And if they can continue to pull away, that's a very interesting scenario. I'm surprised that that's happening because they are cycling it out, and that does tend to slow things down. But at the same time, they've clearly practiced, and they've got something that works.
Yeah, no, this has very clearly been practice and something that if you coordinate, you're not going to lose that much time. But that's the one thing I've noticed with this. Normally, if you see trucks drop to the outside like that, they may linger there. But anybody who goes to the outside with this group is ducking out and immediately going to the back, which, as you sort of, I guess, hinted at there, Jeff. If you want to maintain pace in a straight line like this and you're going to work that, that's how you do that. And I would guess, just off the way I've seen them run this, that they're doing that to try and even out the fuel burn amongst all these trucks so that no one truck spends more time at the front of this group than the other. And of course, if you're leading this train, you're going to burn a little bit more fuel being the first one to punch that hole than a truck that might be 2 or 3 trucks back in the middle of this pack that is getting the benefit of the draft. So that's the strategy behind, at least in part, what the Logitech G Altus esports trucks are doing. How it pans out, what their total end goal is, whether or not it's more about survival or winning, we'll see. We'll find out. That'll come later. But for now, they are your race leaders, and the second pack is controlled by Michael Finlayson with Anthony Burrows up to the top line. They, incidentally, are maybe about 20, 30-ish seconds back or so of your actual race leaders. Cozy and company headed off into turn 3 as the second pack crosses the start-finish line. Now that will even out once the group on the alt strategy that's leading comes down pit road. But for now, a decent-sized gap between this group.
Here's the thing. Another thing to keep in mind, I think that we sort of overlooked, and this could be what they were seeing that we weren't. So their pit strategy is a little bit different. They're pitting off sequence from everyone else, but they're by themselves, right? And they're clearly all working together. So they stay in a single file line, and you go back, if we can get a camera over to that battle for 12th place, Michael Finlayson's leading it, but they're too wide. They're slowing each other down. So honestly, I think that's something we overlooked. They saw something that we didn't there. They are all single file. Look at this. They are double wide there. But go back up to the front. They're single file. Last lap for Michael Finlayson, who's leading this pack, battling with someone up on his outside, 52.046. Go up to Michael Cozy Jr., 51.465. They're not just pulling away, they're pulling away by 0.6 a lap.
Which will be very notable if the strategy pans out for them and they can do this in the same amount of pit stops that your lead pack on the regular strategy does. The thinking, I think, for the drivers in this lead pack is if you are part of this group, you want to stay tucked in, you want to stay together, you want to stay in line and click off these laps, but you have to be committed to the strategy with no variations whatsoever. And maybe not a surprise that we're seeing some of the Bobby Dale Earnhardt's legacy esports drivers. Boyd Hogan's in that little box there back there, and I see, I believe, Casey Tucker also there too. But that group, they're working with the Logitech G Altus esports drivers, and then you've also got one truck a little bit further back there too, Blake Neers. So just be mindful, he too also a legacy truck. So you've got them in the mix as now all your leaders pit here on lap 43. So that's about a 30-lap stint. Jeff McConey, can you do quick math and maybe piece together a little bit more of their strategy?
Well, I think their strategy is to just stick together and run in one big single file line. They're so much quicker. So let's say they average, half a second quicker a lap over the course of 30 laps. That's 15 seconds that they're pulling away. That's just money in the bank right there. 15 seconds every single stint. So that can save up to 30 to maybe even 35 to 40 seconds over the course of this race. So that right there is a really, really smart crew chief behind the scenes. Someone smarter than me that I couldn't see this, but someone that was just very smart said, if we can do this, come up with this crazy strategy and make it happen, we'll win this race. And right now, if it continues to fall in their favor, this is the strategy that will win the race.
And see everybody else in that group come in, and they now make their pit stop. So this is all the legacy drivers. You've got Colin Keister, who enters this evening as your points leader, also down pit road too. So very intriguing, I think, to see how this will pan out as Jarrett Liebert goes to the front in his number 5 machine, and he should assume the race lead once they clear the drivers who have just come down pit road, at least for the moment.
And they will do that as multiple cars still waiting in pit lane. They're all coming out at the same time. It's Retzlaff ahead of Keister, then Hocevar, then the 14 of Blake Neer, and multiple more. But that lead pack going to go right on by your top 5 now. Lieber, Bordeaux, Bias, Bolton, and Severa. As everybody's still single file in the main lead pack. And we'll see if the Altus Esports drivers can find the other drivers they were working with. And yes, they will as they come right out of pit road. They timed it perfectly. Everybody now together as they work down the super stretch.
Everybody working their tails off as Liebert, Bordeaux, Bias, Bolton, Severa there. And how about that? Look at that group there, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, Jeff McConey. Those are all drivers with experience at the top level of eNASCAR in prior seasons. So you want folks who know how to get it done, who have been there, who have done that. Bordeaux, Bias, Bolton, those are names that pretty much everybody in the community knows. You go somewhere, they will be a threat. You can never count them out.
That is for sure. But I'm still sitting here in shock. I think they might have just been out-strategized. Doesn't matter how perfect of a race you run from here. If they don't come up with some sort of genius strategy to counter the Logitech Esports one, they're going to be in trouble. But now they're all single file, so they might have figured something out. Someone out there is listening and heard us talking and then went, guys, we got to get in a single file line and calm down. Otherwise, we're going to throw this race away. So right now, watch for a big shift in strategy. I think we're going to see these guys still continue to run, but look at that. That is 6 very similar cars all lined up in a row with the same objective in mind. Let's see how this works out for them.
All lined up here are these Logitech G Alta C Sports trucks again, and this is going to be such an intriguing strategy to watch, especially if this goes green flag racing. If we don't have a yellow flag, those trucks are in a very, very strong position. But I think they need this to go green in order for this strategy to work out most effectively. Not to say that they can't pivot if we get a yellow flag, but it's just going to be a little bit trickier for them to do so.
And that bottom pack going to go single file now as the Ultra C Sports drivers clear everybody. We're on board with Jarrett Lieber, your current leader, as he leads this inside pack. Everybody single file down on the bottom. No position changes for the moment. Everybody getting used to their cars once again after the first pit cycle. We have another pit cycle coming up rather soon, but just everybody getting stuck into the middle part of this race. And those Ultra C Sports drivers are a little closer than they were before the pit stops. They're at the tail end of this field, and they're going to go to the outside looking for spots.
They are going to jump up there and try and make this run, and they might be there in a few laps. It might take a little bit, but we'll see how they manage on that top line as we continue work near the halfway point. Now, for those who have been paying attention over the course of this race, and those who might have taken a look at the front end of Jarrett Liebert's machine, the number 5 truck on your screens, he's got a special windshield banner tonight that honors the 2 students who were killed in the UNC Charlotte shootings back a few years ago, Riley Howe and Reed Pontier. So as we approach lap 49, we will honor their memory by going silent. Of course, lots of connections to the University of North Carolina at Charlotte in the sim racing community. There are so many students there who are actively involved in the iRacing community, who are studying as part of their motorsports engineering program, one of the best in the country that produces many a mechanic in the NASCAR garage, and a few folks not only in this split but in other splits as well. Nick Olson, driving for Kligerman Sport and Grip Motorsports, was a student at the time of the shootings back a few years ago, and tonight I saw on his Twitter he's dedicated his entire paint scheme to honor Riley and Reed and those affected by the UNC Charlotte shootings. Of course, that happened April 30th, 2019, not too long ago, but this time of year always difficult for those who were affected by that terrible tragedy, and we stand with all the folks in the UNCC Charlotte community as they go through what will be a difficult next few days, no question. As we now turn our attention to the midway race break, which is brought to you by iRacing, the world's leading online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in Australian supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the World of Outlaws, and more when you log on to iRacing.com. Your race leader as it stands is going to bounce around a little bit here as live timing and scoring shuffles. But at the light, or at the stripe last time by, it was Michael Cozy Jr., then Tyler Severa, Drew Freenos, Seth DeMerchant, Jared Liebert, Michael Finlayson, Jordy Lopez Jr., Derek Bordeaux, Justin Bolton, and Matt Danson, your top 10. As it shuffles here, Josh, we're going to have a completely different group from 11th on back.
That's what's going to happen every single lap as these guys are 3 wide up at front. But at the line last time by, Jarrett Liebert in 11th, Braden Boulos in 12th, Derek Bordeaux 13th, Marcus Ruckman 14th, Cody Bias rounds out your top 15 with Parker Retzlaff, Parker White, Carson Hocevar, Garrett Conrath, and Colin Keister rounding out your top 20.
In 21st is Brian Mercurio, Casey Tucker in 22nd, Larry Pace 23rd, Boyd Hogan 24th, Dylan Ault sits 25th, Donovan Strauss started 4th, now back to 26th, playing it safe, Brad Mayhar in 27th, Kenny Brady 28th, Anthony Burrows with Walter on the back in 29th, and Jordan Worth led some laps early on, now back in 30th.
Kevin King, Justin Reed, Devin Curl, 31st through 33rd, and then 2 trucks, 1 lap down, Daniel Roper and Blake Neer to complete this 35 truck field in the top split of the 4th round of the 2021 eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series here on Podium Esports. And that concludes tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break. And with over 170,000 drivers on the service and over 90 laser scan tracks and cars to choose from, iRacing is your portal to the racing world. Get on track today at iRacing.com. Also of note, if you're enjoying coverage of the top split of the 2021 eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series, we've got 2 splits worth of coverage for you. Our friends at STN Racing have coverage of the second split of this series all season long, and you can head on over to multitwitch.tv/Podium Esports /STN_racing is their channel address. So you could, in theory, have both splits or both top split and second split rather, of the 2021 eNASCAR Road to Pro iRacing Series on wherever you like. Jacob Hitz, Jack Johnson and company doing a great job making sure that you get that action, and that'll be especially important when we get to the second half of the season and we only have 2 splits to broadcast. So the entirety of this series in the back half of the year will be broadcast for the first time ever as this series continues to expand and grow in stature and significance among the community. Michael Cozy Jr. is your race leader on that outside, and again, you talked about it a few times here, just the impressiveness of this strategy for Logitech G Altus Esports. They went to the back, ran on their own, got some space just to make sure they stayed away from the wreck, gained some time by running in that line the way they did, and now not only are these trucks in control of this race, they're also in control of the strategy as well, because they have less laps on tires, less laps on fuel, and they, I believe, Jeff, could well make it on one more step if they play this right.
Yes, I believe they can make it on one more stop. I'll have to double check that in a minute here. But here's the thing. They just pulled 3 trucks clear. They about had 4, but they pulled 3 trucks clear. Now they control both lines. They are now ahead of everyone else on strategy. They control both lines, and they have the lead. This is, again, absolutely incredible what they've done. And if they can round it off here tonight, it's going to be hard to beat them. But here's the thing. Racing isn't always who deserves the win. It's not who has the fastest car. It's not who wants it the most. It's whoever leads the last lap. So if these guys get spun around, someone bumps a teammate the wrong way and spins them around, everything goes out the window. You can have the best strategy in the book with Larry McReynolds himself calling the shots, but if you get wrecked on the last lap, it all goes out the window. That's what we have to focus and wait on, but these guys are putting themselves in the best position to control this race. They control both lines right now. No one's going to be able to get around them, I don't think.
Just sort of thinking here, trying to do, again, basic math, but you add 23 to 56, that puts you on 79, which would leave you with 21 laps to go. So they most certainly can make it, I think, on one stop if they stretch this all the way to the end of the run like I think they may, and even then they could come in a little bit earlier if need be to make this work. So the extra pit stop, you wouldn't necessarily think it, but working well to the strength of Logitech G Altus Esports. And does this feel oh so much like Stuart Haas's performance at Talladega in the fall of, I believe, 2018, where they just ran all 4 cars at the front all race long, controlled it, and Eric Almirola was able to cruise to a victory. We may be looking at that very same scenario for one of these 6 drivers later on this evening.
You're right, and they can make it to the end on fuel on one more stop. They last pitted Michael Fenley. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong driver. I did all my math and then realized that I was looking at the wrong driver. So they pit on lap 43. They can go to about lap 80 or so. Yeah, one more pit stop and they will make it to the end. No problem at all. genius move. And they control both lines. They pulled 5 trucks clear now. Yeah, this isn't, you know, play of the game. This isn't call of the race. This isn't call of the week. This is going to get someone into the Coke Series right here. This is going to get someone the chance at running in the Coke Series.
I think you might not necessarily be wrong on that, at least in the sense that this could be the run that at least gets somebody clear of that cutoff. And off the top of my head, I don't know which of these 6 is down at the bottom in points compared to everybody else on that team, but for any one of them, you're going to get a big boost here with the solid run and top split. But again, there's a lot that has to play out in their favor, and we certainly cannot completely call this race yet. But again, the strength of it came in that second run where they were on their own and they had to run together and they had to be committed. It wouldn't have worked if they didn't run nose to tail tucked up right against each other that entire run, but they just rode around for 20 laps and committed to the strategy and made it work. So now it's on the rest of this field to respond and figure out how you break this group up and beat them. And the easy answer, I think, is going to be a coalition of some form to come to the outside and make the passes happen, which is exactly what you're seeing with Parker Retzlaff in the 42 machine, who comes into tonight as one of the very top drivers in this series. Remember, he got the victory at Las Vegas to open up this 2021 Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series campaign. He enters this evening 3rd in points, only behind Colin Keister and Derek Bordeaux. And now he jumps to the outside here. He'll draw even with the 44 machine and pull alongside Jordy Lopez Jr. Now Seth the Merchant, now Michael Cozy. But again, for as good as the strategy is with the Logitech G Altus Esports drivers, I think we also made note of it earlier and need to remember that it's not all that hard to get the top line working if you get drivers working together and committed.
The entire top 6 right now up on the top of the racetrack is those 6 that joined the Logitech G Altus Esports cars on their strategy. They're now completely side by side, looking like pace laps right now as they head into turn number 3. Retzlaff looking for the lead, a good shove from Carson Osavar behind. Space Station Gaming's Colin Keister looking for 2 in a row, 3rd on the outside line, and then it goes all the way back to Briar LaPrade in the 35, who is joining the outside fight. A couple other stragglers further back, but right now it's 7 main trucks on the outside looking for the lead, but Retzlaff not able to get up to the 99 of Michael Cozy Jr. just yet. He's side by side with Jordy Lopez Jr. in the 9 on the inside line, and Retzlaff needs more of a push from Hocevar. The outside line not formed up as well as the inside right now. They can't get by the Logitech G Altus Esports wall that's sitting there on the inside.
It is a fortress down there. That's exactly what that is, Jeff McConey.
That it is, and Reese Bobby in chat beat me to it. It's Legacy up on the outside, Legacy Esports up on the outside, and Logitech on the bottom. Those 2 teams, they were working together beforehand. Now they control everything out the front. So Legacy Esports with Retzlaff and Hocevar and Boyd Hogan and that whole crew up on the outside. And then down on the inside, it's Logitech. That is absolutely phenomenal. Great teamwork, probably across teams.
And look at who's just behind this group here. And at the back end of that line, more of the legacy drivers. Casey Tucker is there. Boyd Hogan is there. Briar LaPrade's even snuck his way back into the mix too. How interesting is that? He's got Michael Finley sitting out near him. So again, teams. We talk about that team so much at the plate races, but there's a reason why we're seeing it now, where it's 3 teams by my count that occupy just about all of the top 15 positions as they're going to slide a little bit further to the back. And indeed, first yellow flag of the evening as we have a wreck towards the back of the pack, which has collected a handful of drivers. And our first yellow flag comes out on lap 62 of 100. We'll take a look at the replay, see what happened here. But there was contact with one of the Amuka Esports trunks and Justin Bolton. Daniel Roper gets into Bolton, and it's on from there, Josh Lee.
And a lot of colorful language over the radio. Just heard over the voice chat, a mistake said, sorry, I thought you guys were going to go higher than that. And that's all it takes to get an incident going here at Talladega. Just small mistakes made at 195 miles per hour on board of Anthony Burrows. And you can see it unfolding in front of him, and he gets a little loose, but he got it saved. What a save for the Waltermobile heading into turn 3. But multiple cars wrecked behind him. Justin Bolton involved, Cody Bias. We saw the 34 obviously going around around the 61, and great save for the 62 as he stayed in the gas as well, didn't even touch the brakes.
Walter went for the ride of his life there, but that was just what you saw, a miscalculation by Conrad. Went in and caught that left rear, and it just sends it one guy around, and from there, so many other people get caught up. You mentioned it, 190 miles an hour. There's not much room for error, but boy, oh boy, you see that, just the tiniest touch, and all of a sudden you got 3, 4, 5 trucks all wrapped up and spinning, and that really is frustrating as for the drivers, because they've now spent the last 60 laps working so hard, but looks like we're getting ready for pit stops up towards the front. Everyone comes in, and that hurts the Logitech strategy. Let's see what they're able to do.
It does break their strategy because it's going to reset everybody on the same pit cycle. So they at least have the track position, but now that pit advantage that they had is gone as they all come down pit road. Also of note here, just tracking some of the drivers who got damaged in that incident. Roper's got some to his left front. You've got some on the right rear of Justin Bolton where he made contact. Anthony Burrows, I think, just snuck through this and came through unscathed. Looks like Devin Curl in the 51 made contact with Cody Bias, who runs the 14 truck and ended up in trouble, and he got some significant damage to the right front as well. And beyond that, not too many other trucks that really got hurt in that incident, but the handful of drivers with that damage, it doesn't take a lot here, Josh, to slow you down at all. Any sort of aerodynamic anything is going to put you at a disadvantage here.
And that is something that you don't need at Talladega, especially dragging that truck back. It just makes it slower, you're not able to make it the runs that you need to, and those trucks with damage probably going to try and get as much of it repaired as they possibly can to get back in the pack. But as of right now, a lot of them can kiss their day goodbye as the Logitech GLTC Esports cars broken up a little bit at the front as they made their way out of the pit lane. A solid handful of them get out in front, but also a solid handful of drivers are able to punch their way into it. Colin Keister, Parker Retzlaff now 4th and 5th. Then you have the rest of the GLTC Esports cars, Danson, Boulos, and Ruckman, as Cozy Jr., Lopez Jr., and DeMerchant lead. It's Hocevar and Tucker rounding out your top 10. Boyd Hogan, Tucker Minter, Michael Fenlison, Briar LaPrade, they find each other now in 13th and 14th, with Drew Farinage rounding out your top 15. So a lot of those drivers who were up front when the caution came out are still up front, but more drivers starting to etch their way closer to the front.
We'll take a look at some of the strategies and how this race may pan out from that perspective when we come back on the other side of this break, as you're watching Podium Esports coverage of round 4 of the 2021 eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series Top Split from Talladega Super Speedway.
iRacing is a sim racing game that combines a true-to-life racing experience with an online community of virtual racers from all around the globe. iRacing offers a multitude of officially licensed cars and tracks, laser scanned with millimeter accuracy. Their car models and mechanical systems are based on real-world physics, engineered in cooperation with manufacturers and race teams. Their skill license system ranges from rookie to pro, ensuring members are always pitted against those with similar skill sets. Members are able to sign up for a weekly race series, compete in time trials, host a private race with friends, and participate in racing leagues created and run by the community. With over 170,000 members, iRacing works in partnership with renowned motorsports organizations like NASCAR to deliver virtual races based on the real-life NASCAR Cup Series, as well as many other series on the NASCAR ladder. iRacing also features team racing, providing a variety of options for members to create and manage their own teams. Race with friends or real-world teammates in full-length endurance events like the 24 Hours of Daytona, Spa 24, or the Bathurst 12 Hour. Additional partners include IMSA, World of Outlaws, Supercars, and IndyCar, allowing members to race in their very own Indianapolis 500, Bathurst 1000, Chili Bowl, and many more iconic events. This is iRacing, delivering the most authentic racing experience short of getting into a real race car. Sign up today at iRacing.com.
Welcome back to Podium Esports coverage of the 2021 eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series Top Split. Round 1, Race 4 from Talladega Super Speedway. James Pike, Josh Lee, Jeff McConey, and producer Ryan Bauer bringing you all the action from NASCAR's largest oval. We're going to get set to go back green flag racing on lap 66 of 100. And as we go racing, it's going to be very close if we go to the end on fuel there. We'll wait and see if any of these drivers get lined up, but everybody really strung out for this restart, Josh Lee, so I don't think everybody's completely invested on trying to get this big pack up together at the front once again just yet.
And now all the Logitech G-Ultis Esports drivers going to go back to the bottom. They're going to shuffle out Colin Keister, and he's going to slide in between two of the Logitech cars and keep in the line. Now they're in between a Logitech G-Ultis sandwich, three at the front, two at the back, and then one stuck in the middle. It's Matt Danson stuck in the middle there, but there's a lot of drivers single file at the back end of this restart line, and that's because they all came down to top off with fuel before they went green, pitted under a closed pit road. So they started at the tail end of the longest line, which was the inside line on the restart. I'm interested to hear from Jeff McConey really how that top off is going to affect the guys in the back versus the about top 10, top 12 who did not come down.
So when you are out here, you're burning about 0.2 gallons per lap when you're just cruising around under caution. Call it 0.2 if you're not saving. However, something you have to keep in mind is it's really on the dot, half a gallon a lap. So you're burning half a gallon per lap if you're behind someone else almost perfectly. So that's a good enough estimate where you can be okay. Now we're taking this with 35 laps to go. You have 18.5 gallons in the tank if you do top off, and 18.3 if you don't top off, because you're staying out that extra lap. That is so close. These things are liable to start kicking at about 0.3 gallons left. So 0.3 gallons will take you right up to the end. We're going to see guys on fumes. Some will have enough fuel, some won't. It's going to be a game of saving fuel. But I can also tell you this. If you're out there and you're cutting air in front of other people, and you're breaking that air in front of you, and you have people behind you, you're going to be in trouble. You're not going to make it to the end, because that's about 0.55 gallons a lap. So you're burning 1.1 every 2 laps rather than 1.0. And that doesn't sound like much. A tenth of a gallon every 2 laps doesn't sound like a lot. But at the end of the run, that ends up coming out to quite a bit, and you won't have enough to make it to the end if you're leading. So if you're this car out front, you're the leader, you're Michael Cosi Jr., you're right now not going to make it on fuel if you don't do something drastic.
For all that switching that we saw Logitech G-Ultis Esports do in the middle of this race, especially on that run where they were running by themselves, this is the kind of situation where that really could matter a lot. And they still have a lot of trucks up at the front of this field. They've got all 6 within the top 10, so I don't think it would be too hard to do, but this is one where you may need to employ that strategy again just to make sure that you give Cosi, Lopez, Merchant, and company a chance, because if you just leave Michael as the lead-out driver here, he has no shot of making it to the end unless we get another yellow flag that comes within the final 30 laps, and then it doesn't matter if everybody pits because everybody will be good to go on fuel, Josh.
And that's going to be interesting to see how that caution is going to throw a wrench into things, and it's also going to throw a wrench into the way these drivers are racing at the moment. And we really kind of employed that we were going to have a lot more cautions, the domino effect. Cautions breed cautions. Right now, everybody's single file, bottom of the racetrack. Not a lot of action going on right now. A bit of a shuffling going on at the front, but everybody seems to be clean and good right now. 31 laps to go. A couple of guys closer on towards the back trying to make a run on the outside line work, but seems like everybody's main interest right now is surviving, trying not to get any more cautions this late and try and run all the way to the end. Maybe because they know that the front guys did not come into top off, they might be throwing a Vegas bet on these guys up front, losing fuel very quickly and running out on the final lap. It's gonna be close for a lot of drivers, and there's a lot of uncertainty.
They're coming down pit road.
They're coming down to pit road.
That right there is insurance for a green-white checkered. Now they're going to have enough to the end. That's what they're banking on. I'm shocked at how many people follow them. So right now, this is going to change everything. Look at the number of cars that all came down pit road, I think a lot of people heard they were coming in and almost panicked and said, I've got to pit too. So now these guys will be safe for a green-white checker. That's the safe call. So they're just playing it smart here. I was going to make a comment about how much of a team player Michael Cozy could be, how selfish he would be versus how much of a team player he would be. Because if he stayed out, he could lead all those laps and guarantee that one of his teammates would win it if they stayed out and stayed green until the end. But that goes right out the window. That's a team call right there. This is truly incredible. And like Compra says in chat, what a gaggle of cars that came down pit road there. I saw them 4 wide. I'm amazed everyone made it through okay.
That was about as wild of a mess as I've ever seen in any Talladega race, real or virtual, coming down pit road. And it splits this field into the top 14 trucks with the 2 lap machines of Dan Roper and Cody Bias, and then everybody else that's coming down pit road. So everybody here in this front group will likely need a yellow, especially if we end up getting a green-white checker. They're going to need a little bit of help, I think, to make it. It's going to be very close.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I think most of them can make it. If you're Briar LaPrade right now, who's sort of basically caught up in the middle of this, he's got cars in front and behind. If you've got someone in front of you and someone behind you, you can be okay. Now, right now, they've got a 26-second advantage. However, they're going to have to be a little bit more conservative. You see Tyler Sever right now, he jumps out of the lead. He doesn't want to be that lead car. If it stays green to the end, they can make it. And if it stays green to the end, they'll have the advantage unless somehow Anthony Burroughs and that whole crew can run them down. But right now, these guys are hoping it stays green. They want it to stay green out front, and they will be able to hold everyone off. The guys towards the back, they want a caution because that would help their strategy come around. But if you're out front here and you're in this lead pack, as long as you're not breaking the wind for other people and helping other people behind you, you're going to want this to stay green because you will have just enough fuel to make it.
What's so interesting about this lead group to me, Josh, is that there's so many people that came down pit road in that other group that I almost wonder if it backfired a little bit, because there's so few drivers at the front here that I won't totally rule out the idea of this group just getting lined up like the Logitech G Altus Esports drivers did and running away with this if they've got enough fuel. It's a small enough group to where they might be able to make it, and I think we openly have to question whether or not maybe too many drivers came down pit road for the insurance, if it may have backfired on the Logitech G Altus Esports drivers.
It's very possible, and you can see by the last pit stop laps, the top 12 are the drivers that came in to top off. Everybody else just came in on lap 70 for that insurance that you're talking about, James. But right now up at the front, it's a game of chicken. Reminds me of the early days of the group qualifying at the restrictor plate tracks when it was an entire game to figure out who's going to go first, who's going to lead the field, because you know the lead car is both the slowest and the car that's burning the most fuel. And right now, it's Jordan Worth in the 20, burning the most, cutting the air for everybody, as Jeff said. So he's burning up the most fuel right now. That's not going to be good, but you can see everybody running single file. Nobody wants the lead right now, so they can try and be there at the end on the white flag.
The lead is just not where you want to be. You're going to kill your fuel numbers. So I almost wonder if Jordan's going to step out of line here and give up the race lead and just get out so he can get back in the draft and make sure that he's got enough to make it to the end. If he sits here out front, I think for any of these drivers, if they sit out front of this pack, they're not going to make it. And we'll just have to watch how they develop over the next 15 laps or so to see who really does have a chance. And you might be banking on a yellow, maybe even that backpack that's trying to climb their way back towards the front of this field. So as these drivers work their way through the final quarter of this race, time to tell you about some of the upcoming broadcasts in the world of Podium Esports and iRacing. We've got round 14 of the MPI Cup Series from Bristol Motor Speedway on Sunday night, 9:15 p.m. Eastern on the Podium Esports Twitch channel right here. It's the final race of their regular season. We'll find out which 4 drivers join the 12 that have already qualified for the MPI Cup Series playoffs. Be interesting. Then the finale to Season 3 of the Esports Racing League. Anthony Alfredo's league heads to Auto Club Speedway in the Xfinity cars, and we will see one of Presley Sora or Adam Cabot win the title and win their way into next season of Monday Night Racing. That also here on the Podium Esports Twitch channel, 8 p.m. next Monday night, April 26th. you've got the best of the best in stock car sim racing coming your way next Tuesday night, April 27th. The eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series continues from Kansas Speedway. Pre-race will begin at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on the iRacing Twitch channel, as well as their YouTube and Facebook pages. Then it's the opening race of Series 6 for PCA Sim Racing. The Porsche Club of America goes back to iRacing and back with the 911 GT3 Cup cars at one of their favorite tracks, Road America. You can watch that racing starting at 8 p.m. Eastern, Wednesday night, April 28th, on the PCA Sim Racing YouTube channel, as well as twitch.tv/Podium2, the Podium Facebook page, and the Podium Esports Twitter as well. We've also got some Dirt Sprint Car Championship Series action coming up a little bit later on in May 5th. And then we're back in action in 2 weeks' time with round 5 from Darlington Raceway, the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series. And we'll have that broadcast at 9 p.m. right here on the Podium Esports Twitch channel. So lots to look forward to, and that's before we even get to the eNASCAR Pro Invitational iRacing Series from Darlington, which will come on a very, very big day, because we are going to see the unveil of the much lauded next-gen Gen 7 cars that will be used from the 2022 NASCAR Cup Series season onwards. NASCAR announcing that a few weeks ago, that we'll see all of the cars from Toyota and Ford and Chevrolet break cover in their manufacturer spec for the very first time on May 5th. And then you'll have racing in the eNASCAR Pro Invitational iRacing Series in Darlington tonight. So a busy night that Wednesday, May 5th, and you'll want to stay glued to your televisions the evening of Cinco de Mayo. Plenty of racing action in the sim and in the real world as well. Announcements abound. But we take a look at this second pack. This is the group that came in 8 laps ago to make sure that they can make it to the end, regardless of whether or not we have a green-white checker finish. But again, it's the majority of the pack that's back there. Jordan Worth continues to lead this group, and how interesting is this that Michael Finlayson and company are backing off of the front of the number 20 truck. I almost wonder, Jeff McConey, if we may see these trucks from second on back maybe start throttling it a little bit and coasting, clutching, not running at 100% just to save enough fuel. You've got about a 13-second gap, so you can leave a little bit here if you need it, but you also don't want to back yourself up so far that you let the second group in, because if they pass you in the draft, you really do have a very tall hill to climb.
Yeah, that's the issue. They've backed off too much. They've already lost about 9 seconds to the pack behind them. It was 23 seconds, and now it's about 2 to 3 seconds a lap that the pack on from 13th on back is catching them. That pack is going to catch them. Even though they're too wide, they're running so aggressively. They're running 51-second laps. They are going to catch this front pack. Jordan Worth is running 55s. He's got no help behind him. Everyone else is too busy saving fuel. And this pack that's further back, not only have they pitted, they're going to come up and pass all these guys. So this is now a very bad situation for the people that stayed out. They didn't push it hard enough, and now they're going to pay for it, because this backpack, 8.5 seconds now. They're coming. They gained 4 seconds that lap. At this rate, they'll catch them in the next lap and a half.
So they're going to burn this gap that they had by not coming down pit road, Josh Lee. And the only question that remains is the amount of fuel that they save by giving up most of this lead going to be enough to make sure that they can get to the end of at least the scheduled distance of 100 laps? Because if they can find a buffer here, I would say probably somewhere in the ballpark of 2 seconds or so from that last truck in the first pack to the first truck in the second pack, and just hold there and stay in front of the second group and have enough fuel to make it to the end, this strategy might still work. It's not totally dead in the water just yet.
But it's very close to being dead in the water, definitely, as they continue to drop off, and this backpack is still just etching away at that gap. You saw an update at the line, now about 2.2 seconds, now under 2 seconds as they start to really chase them down. 3 Logitech G-Altus Esports cars spearheading this group as they all race down the super stretch, and now that front group starting to get a little bit more racy as they're too wide. To the outside goes Brad Mahar. He's got help from Tucker Minter behind him and Kevin King. Jordan Worth gonna fall back on the inside, and look at this, more help to the 61. He fell back. That's Daniel Roper. He fell back a lap down a while ago. He now spearheads the front of the pack, and here comes the backpack and a huge block coming to the outside as they try and block the Logitech G-Altus Esports cars. They are 3 wide headed through the tri-oval here at Talladega Talladega.
Larry Pace just threw the biggest block I think I've seen at a plate track in some time with 20 laps to go in this race. But we also have to watch here because they are 3 wide, and the merging of these packs could spell trouble for somebody, as there goes the 10 machine. Tucker Minter just swept up in front of Jordan Worth, and all of a sudden the intensity has ratcheted up almost 1,000,000% it feels like, Jeff McCody.
Everyone's getting crazy. They know this is the battle for the win. If they run green to the end, pretty much everyone has enough fuel. Jordan Worth won't have enough. Some of the drivers that were saving before might have enough to make it to the end here. So they're a little more concerned about fuel, but everyone that pitted at lap 70, they are already set. They're safe. They can do green, white checkers. They can do whatever they need to do. This is the battle for the win. This is the battle for the championship here. Everyone wants it. They want to be in that top 70. They want that top spot. They want to make it to the Coke Series. This is the battle for it at Talladega. Anyone can win it. And right now, these G Logitech Altus guys have been absolutely dominant on strategy. I'm interested to see if they can pull it off at the end, because they've got some really strong trucks.
It's a little bit terrifying to think what might happen if they get lines up with 10 laps to go. We saw how strong they were earlier. There's 4 of your 6 in this race on that outside line, and then pacing the set. The Merchants got control of the middle. Now the bottom lane is going to let Colin Keister take, well, no, take that back. Jordy Lopez is going to go down to the middle. So all 3 lanes now under the auspices of Logitech G Altus Esports. And now you sit and you wait and you see who makes the move to that very outside line to try and combat the control of this field that those blue and white and orange machines have.
And they're 3 by 3 for a couple rows there in the 44 now. Jordy Lopez Jr. takes the lead. Couple cars get a little bit squirrely further back on that inside line. They keep it straight. We stay green. Now 5 cars on the inside line, spearheaded by Jordy Lopez Jr. The outside line has your reigning race winner, Colin Keister, in the 33, trying to go back to back. He has a mirror full of Donovan Strauss in the 51. One car going to pull all the way down to the bottom, move out of the pack. No, he's not. He's going to get right back up. He got forced down there. Now still 3 wide all through this lead pack. Bolton going to move up to the middle in the 10. Now only 3 cars on the inside, 5 in the middle, 3 outside as they race back to the stripe.
Another truck jumps up to the outside. That's one of the Reaper trucks, Legacy Esports trucks, but they are looking to go 3 wide for the lead. They're 3 wide for second right now, but these drivers, like we've been saying, the gloves are now off. Everyone wants to get in on this. 3 wide, 3 deep. Look at this middle line coming to life here. That could be something strong, but the inside line, they've got that big gap right there. You see that? That could be a big run for the 51. That's Devin Curl. We'll see who's able to make this outside line come to life, though. We've seen it be strong all race. We've seen people run the wall in real life and on iRacing. Let's see what they can do. That's Parker Retzlaff up leading that high side with 2 G Altus boys behind him. Let's see what they can do.
This is going to be so tight, and we are, I think, in line for one of those classic, wild, nutty Talladega finishes where you just don't know what's going to happen. 15 laps to go when they touch the stripe. This job by Jordy Lopez now in control. You see just touches of that Dominican Republic flag number 44 on top of his Chevy Silverado. Of course, Jordy with plenty of Dominican heritage. That's where that comes from on his machine, so you always know where his car, or truck in this case, may be, as he drops to the inside. And how about the 51 machine of Donovan Strauss, who hasn't had the best of luck to start off this Road to Pro campaign in the qualifying series, but now here he is at the front for the first time tonight, beginning to show some muscle with all the Logitech G Altus Esports and your points that are calling Keister around him.
And they're still racing very aggressive 3 by 3 as they make their way off of turn number 4. On board of Anthony Burrows. Now he is stuck in the middle 3 wide. His spotter is telling him just hold that line, follow the back bumper of the 10 of Justin Bolton, and you'll be okay, assuming nobody makes any brash moves in either lane. But everybody's shuffling now as they head into turn 1. Keister gonna now go down to the bottom of the racetrack. He takes the lead 2 wide now for second between Lopez. Lopez actually gonna clear the outside line. Now Parker Retzlaff leads him up there. He's going to pull up to the middle now. The 44 wants the lead back from Keister as they work the super stretch.
Middle lane with that run again, and there goes Lopez with a truck length ahead of Keister. Where does he go? Middle, top, bottom, sit, stay? He'll stay. It'll be the middle where Keister goes, or rather Lopez goes, and that'll allow Keister to get that big run on the inside with help from Seth DeMerchant, who nearly turned the 33 and then bounces off the goal, and they are going to somehow keep it together. One truck on the inside.
Larry Pace in the 30.
I don't know, Josh Lee, how they did not just wreck and bring out a yellow.
But that is going to scare everybody now in the back. Larry Pace stuck at the entrance to pit road in the 30. He was the one that got the worst deal out of it as he was stopped on the inside of the apron. But looking at the front pack now, it's Anthony Burrows out in front trying to lead the way as we grab a replay. And there were 3 by 3, everybody racing for real estate. And it looks like just a little bit too much of a push from Brad Mahar to the 57, and that started a chain reaction, and Larry Pace was the only one who got a lot of damage out of that. He went head on into the inside wall. Seems like everybody else was good as they're back to 3 by 3 and a brand new leader of Michael Cozy Jr. around the outside in the tri-oval.
They may have lost Seth DeMerchant and Jordy Lopez at the front, but there's still strength with the Logitech T-Altis Esports trucks, and it's Cozy and it's his teammate back there. As you've got one truck trying to make it 4 wide for a split second there, but looks like that was the 01-23 of Braden Boulos that was helping Cozy to the front, but they'll drop back. So now it's Brad Mahar, Colin Keister, Justin Bolton. Remember, he got turned around some 25 laps ago, right about at this point on the racetrack, and now here he is fighting for the race lead. He's getting help from the 04 machine. That's Derek Bordeaux pushing him to the front.
Colin Keister throws it back down in line. He's now 4th in line on the inside. They're 2 by 2. Looks like everyone's calmed down a little bit here. We've got 12 laps to go, coming to 11 to go. But right now, still 2 by 2, but I don't think it's going to stay that way for long. The reason that wasn't a caution before is everyone was mostly straight on track. We saw Larry Pace go down to the bottom, but he was considered to be off track, so iRacing did not throw the caution there. Now the inside line is looking strong, but how about this outside line? That is looking very strong for Justin Bolton, but not able to get clear and get down to the bottom. Still 2 by 2 by 2.
Just to reset this for you all so you know, top 15 are all in this lead pack. Then you've got a group of about 6 or 7 trucks led by Boyd Hogan, stretching all the way back to Donovan Strauss, 16th to 23rd. They're all running single file, but they're about to get swept up by Blake Meir, by Michael Finlayson, by Jordan Worth, by Drew Freenage, Parker White, and then the damaged truck of Jordy Lopez Jr. beginning to fall off. Kevin King and looks like, I believe, Daniel Roper working together at the very back of this field, but they're well off that group. So there's your lead breakaway group 1, breakaway group 2 peloton. We'll make the cycling references here throughout this race because it just seems like they've worked very well tonight and are very appropriate because that's about the structure that we have. But it's this lead group of about 15 trucks that is about to become a little bit bigger because Boyd Hogan's drugged them to the back of Marcus Ruttman's rear deck lid, and what was 15 is about to become 20, and I think when they come, it's going to ratchet the intensity up, Josh Lee.
And they work the super stretch now. Majority of the field 2 by 2. Multiple cars starting to work to the outside line. Multiple cars starting to go 3 wide now. Spearheaded by Boyd Hogan on the outside line. They're trying to get a huge run, and they are. Boyd Hogan on the top of the racetrack. He's working with his teammate in the 28. Altis Esports cars go up to try and block the run from Boyd Hogan. He has to get out of the gas. They're now 3 by 3 once more as they work to the tri-oval.
They did not let any of the legacy trucks go as we are within the final 10 laps at Talladega. It's a 20 car back for the race lead. Jeff McKilney.
Justin Bolton leads the way, but it's 3 by 3 by 3 behind him. Everyone's looking for their slice of the pie. You have legacy drivers all throughout. Anthony Burrows is wrapped up in the middle. Walter stuck on that middle line. He's got cars all around him. It's a great battle at the front.
Burrows stuck right in the mess, but you can see 2 Altis Esports drivers, 2 legacy drivers on the outside. They're getting a huge run. The 99 of Michael Cozy Jr. trying to go for the lead. Derek Bordeaux with a huge move to the inside. He's going to shuffle the 10 and Justin Bolton back. Bordeaux with help from Burrows as they work off turn 4.
Beautiful work there from Derek Bordeaux to take the race lead, and he's got Anthony Burrows there. Colin Keister going to the middle, and it looks like Derek Bordeaux's going to shuck Burrows to the inside. He was going to try and pick up the run from Colin Keister, but instead it's nose to tail, 2/100ths of a second at the stripe between the leaders the last time by.
Hold on tight, Walter, because it's a crazy ride. He's leading the way on the inside line. Anthony Burrows looking for redemption after getting taken out 2 weeks ago at Richmond. He needs these points. He needs a good race, and he leads the way, but Justin Bolton leaves him and goes up to the middle line. Let's see if Carson Hocevar can get something done on the inside.
Burrows now leads the inside. In the middle is Justin Bolton. Outside, Colin Keister. They're 3x3 for the lead as they work through turns 3 and 4. Everybody fighting for real estate right now as they work back to the front straightaway.
No major runs yet, but here comes Bolton and Bordeaux through the middle. As we've seen many times tonight, that middle lane seems to be the first one to get the runs. So Bolton's going to nose ahead of Anthony Burrows at the stripe, coming to 7 laps to go. It's the 10 truck that leads this time by 0.06 of a second.
Right now, we have some lap traffic up ahead. Matt Danson, one of the Logitech cars, and Kenny Brady are sitting there, and they're going to hold that inside line, it looks like. Be prepared for a little bit of a scramble. A mad dash as everyone looks to avoid the lap cars. A little bit of contact, just a kiss. They're 3 wide for the lead.
Bolton spearheading the middle line now. Bordeaux going to get stuck on the outside. He's not going to have any help until back to the 99 all the way up on the top side. Bolton now going to have pressure from Anthony Burrows. Burrows going to go all the way to the top to join Derek Bordeaux. Look at Colin Keister in the 33. Back to the bottom. Contact with the 10 as they work to the tri-oval.
He just about doored, or rather Justin Bolton did Colin Keister, and now Bolton's going to find himself in the middle of this pack as Burrows takes control of the middle lane. Colin Keister with a deft move to get from the middle to the inside and take the race lead.
Those cars may be a lap down, but they're still at full speed. They're working there, and they've got teammates up at the front. Let's see if they're able to help out at all. Now 2x2, a little bit calmer, it looks like, as everyone's taking a deep breath. They've got 7 laps to go, 7 more trips around this 2.66 mile track. Plenty of time to make something happen, and we're expecting a big move off of turn 4 for the win.
Burrows leads now through the middle. He had help from Justin Bolton. He pulls down to cover Colin Keister in the 33. Hocevar now at the back bumper of Justin Bolton as Burrows going to lead the field off turn 4. More cars starting to join the fight. Bordeaux, the only car on the outside.
Derek Bordeaux's got no help up there. We'll see how far he drops back. Look at Parker Retzlaff. He's got a completely torn up front end, and he's the 3rd car in line in the middle as Anthony Burrows leads them to the stripe with 5 laps to go. We're starting to see some of the trucks towards the back of this group get lined up for a final run to the front.
5 laps to go, and there's plenty of time for chaos to happen. But once they take that white flag, they're going to have to run it out to the end. Now we see up front, Anthony Burrows is leading the way, but Justin Bolton up on the outside. One of the Logitech cars down to the bottom. We could see drivers start running out of fuel any second now.
He's fallen to the back, possibly with that fear. Bordeaux working the outside line. He has help now from Jarrett Liebert. He started on the pole, looking to find his way back to the front for the win. It's Burrows inside, Bolton middle, Bordeaux outside. Just not a lot of help against the wall as Bordeaux tries to lead the way. Here comes Colin Keister to the middle.
There goes Jarrett Liebert pushing, Bordeaux as Bolton and Keister work together again. They're going to be maybe separated by a bumper at best, and it's going to be dead even at the line. It was 5/1000ths of a second between Bordeaux and Keister.
Call out right there from Justin Bolton. Get out from in front of me. I can't push for much longer. These guys are giving it everything they've got. We could see some engines blow up. There's so many things that can go wrong. They've been racing all night for this. 4 laps to go, and here they come. Colin Keister leads the way.
Nobody wanted to help against the wall. It's still just Liebert and Bordeaux up there. Keister with a huge shove from the 62 of Burrows, getting him a little bit loose. 3rd car on the inside line looks to be one of the number 54s as the 62 goes back to the middle looking for the lead.
There goes Anthony Burrows with a huge run from Justin Bolton. He's got Carson Hocevar in the middle too. They'll jump it ahead by 2 truck lengths, by 3 truck lengths on Keister, Bordeaux, and Liebert still hanging tough to the outside and still in the mix as they go 4 wide momentarily. And there goes Keister to the inside.
A big block and Keister sideways, saving it, working hard, back and forth, sawing the wheel, somehow manages to keep that truck going straight. A little bit of collateral damage, but everyone's still rolling. It's a green flag still, and now they're 3 wide up in the lead. Carson Hocevar in the middle.
Hocevar joins the fight for the lead. Bordeaux with a huge shove from Jarrett Liebert on the outside. He's going to look for the lead. They're not too wide. Hocevar clear on the bottom. Tried to take it, but Burrows was there. Hocevar has help from Retzlaff in the middle. Bolton on the back bumper, the 62. Liebert still on the back bumper is the 04 as they head back to the stripe. right.
Look at Anthony Burrows. It's only 3 trucks now in that inside lane. They could be vulnerable here coming to 2 laps to go. Liebert and Bordeaux again. Bolton to the middle. Burrows staying down low. He's going to pick up one of the Amuka Esports machines. It'll be dead even at the stripe once again. And anybody in the top 10 can still win this.
Looks like Justin Bolton's got the advantage as he's trying to pull Carson Hocevar clear. Carson is not clear. Anthony Burrows down on the inside, but here comes a big run up on the outside, but no room at the end. They couldn't get that 4th line going, but 4 wide is a possibility here. I think we're going to see it soon. The outside line has come to life, and the top 2 are clear.
Liebert makes a move to the inside. Bordeaux now in the middle. Another Logitech Gioltas esports driver trying to make a move. It's the 0-1 all the way on the outside. Bolton with a huge run to the back bumper of the 5. It's Jared Liebert as they lead him off 4, coming to the white flag.
Inside lane's got the run this time by. They will come and get the white flag. Next flag will end the race no matter what. If they get to the stripe, we are not going to have a green-white checker tonight. White flag in the air at Talladega for the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series.
If these guys are going to make it to the end on fuel, we'll have to find out. Anthony Burrows 3rd in line on the inside. Justin Bolton ahead of him, but our new leader making a big move, Jared Liebert. He started on the pole. He's looking to finish there, but Derek Bordeaux has something to say about that. That middle line's moving. Carson Hocevar pushing. They're 3 wide there, and this is where the action's going to be, coming off turn 4 and through the tri-oval.
Into turn 3 for the final time on the white flag lap. It's going to be Derek Bordeaux covering the inside of Jared Liebert. Hocevar now in 2nd. He's got open track ahead of him. The outside line fizzles out. Bordeaux now with a huge bumper on Jared Liebert coming to the tri-oval.
Here comes Carson Hocevar on the outside. He's got help through the middle from Colin Keister. Hocevar, Bordeaux, drag race to the line. They bounce off of each other. Bordeaux's going to nose ahead by just a truck length, then win round number 4 of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series from Talladega. And I thought for a moment maybe Hocevar was going to be able to get lined up with Keister and get it done, but it was Bordeaux and Liebert who worked together for just about the final 20 laps of that race. Teamwork paying off, experience paying off, and co-opetition paying off to get those drivers 1st and 2nd in this 4th race for the top split of the 2021 eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. Josh Lee.
And what a race that was. I was just peering over at STN. They had a wreck at the line 3 wide for their race win. So it was exciting racing here at Talladega through all of the splits in the Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. But Derek Bordeaux gets it done, and he's also going to take the points lead heading out of Talladega.
You didn't think that the points leader was going to be the one to come away with the victory, and we said we thought we'd see the points shake up a little bit, and then lo and behold, the driver who comes into tonight tied for the points lead is going to get his 2nd win at the place that you would think would be the most wild card of places, but it's Bordeaux who gets the win over Liebert, who helped him to P1. Carson Hocevar with the 3rd place finish. Colin Keister with another solid finish as well. He's not going to drop that far back of Bordeaux in the point standings. Justin Bolton with a top 5, a good finish for him. He needed one after the start to his season. Anthony Burrows finishes 6th, Dylan All 7th, Seth the Merchant, Parker Retzlaff, and Braden Boulos complete the top 10. Jeff McConaughey.
What an absolutely amazing race. Brian Mercurio comes home 11th, Michael Cosi Jr. in 12th, Marcus Ruckman in 13th, Casey Tucker 14th, Boyd Hogan, Tucker Minter, Garrett Conrath, and Drew. Oh no, I'm not even, you know what? I know how to say it. Go ahead. I'm not going to butcher it. Pike, you told me earlier, so go ahead.
You put yourself in the spot now. You have no choice but to say it.
Freenosh. And then Parker White and Justin Reed round out your top 20.
In 21st, Tyler Severa, 22nd, Devin Curl, 23rd, Briar LaPrat. He had a great start to the day. Unfortunately, not the finish we were expecting from him. Same thing with Jordan Worth. He almost ran out of fuel closer to the end there. He had to save a lot towards the end. He finished in 24th. Blake Neer, 25th. Michael Fenlison, 26th. Kevin King, 27th. Kenny Brady, 28th. Donovan Strauss comes home 29th with Matt Danson in 30th. And rounding out the final 5 positions on the track, Jordy Lopez Jr., Brad Mahar, Daniel Roper, Larry Pace, and Cody Bias. 35 cars finish out the day, and what a day it was.
Wild stuff, and Talladega delivers yet another classic finish, this time in the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series, and we will turn our attention to the man in victory lane. Derek Bordeaux is going to join us in just a few moments' time and get us set to go with our post-race interviews, and we're going to see just how he managed to pull this off. So walk us through it, Derek. We saw that you and Jarrett had been working together all throughout that last green flag run. How'd you get it done in the final lap?
I mean, I actually don't know, to be honest. When we caught those lap cars and Colin made a move 3 wide, it literally boils down to that move, and then I got stuck 3 wide, and then somehow Jarrett found me, and then I think Parker Reslav in the second behind Carson had damage, so that kind of slowed down, and I don't know what happened. Something happened on the inside, so it balled them up, and then as soon as me and Jarrett got cleared, we just controlled both lanes, and it was me or him, and then at the end it just played out that I just could go down on the inside on the last lap out of 2, and then I just stayed there and just hold a pretty wheel.
What I think makes this unique is that usually when you run into situations like this, you don't necessarily see these pairings that come together on the white flag and at the finish happen until very, very late. But you and Jarrett had been nose to tail on that outside line for maybe, the last 10, 15 laps leading up to the white flag. So was that part of the strategy from the get-go? Did you think the familiarity with the way you two raced together helped? What sort of came about as a result of all that work that you did together?
I mean, the plan was to, the entire race just be within each other, because we didn't know if the strategy of saving fuel or to the other strategy of like going and then pitting and taking less fuel on the last stop. So as soon as we figured that out, we just stayed together, and then we caught that other pack that was saving fuel in the last run. And then I went, because I don't know, my point situation, I'm very good in points and he's not, so I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go. And then we just at that point we kind of split up, and then at the end, like I said, we just reunited. I literally was not expecting that at all, and it ended up working out very good for the both of us.
You mentioned the points. I think that's one of the more intriguing pieces of this, is that if you are the points leader, Talladega is not necessarily a track that you look at and say, man, that's a great place to bolster my position in the point standings, and I am totally going to circle that one down as a place where I think I'm going to gain a lot on everybody. And yet here you are, and you're going to leave Talladega as the points leader after coming in tied for the points lead. So in that sense, for the rest of the competition throughout this Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series, this is pretty much just about the worst case scenario for them, but obviously great for you, no?
Oh yeah, it's very great. I have not finished worse than 3rd in, 4 races now, so it's kind of remarkable. It's good, but with this how it is, like split in 2, I just hope I don't burn all my good finishes the first half, and I can get some of these on the second half when it kind of really matters. So I just hope that's going to be the case.
An incredible start to this Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series season in 2021 for Derek Bordeaux. Derek, congratulations on your victory tonight from all of us at Podium Esports and iRacing. Thanks for the time, and we'll see you in 2 weeks when we head to the track Too Tough to Tame, Darlington, South Carolina, next up on the list.
Yeah, thank you.
Derek Bordeaux, your race winner this evening in the top split of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. His teammate all throughout the evening and partner in crime, runner-up, and a good points finish goes to Jarrett Liebert, who is with Josh Lee.
And Jarrett, it was a great drive to the finish for you. I want to start with touching on the windshield banner, because we covered it about midway through the race. How important was not just running that banner, but this entire race for you, running under that banner and trying to just spread that message of what happened a few years ago?
For me, Liam isn't really a close friend, Brotherton, but he always talks about it every few days in Discord. It really means a lot to him, and when he put the banner on the forums for everyone to download and put on the trucks, for me it wasn't really a question. I had to put it on. Anything like that means a lot to me, and I know everybody else that was involved, so it's just something really, really cool to get up front with and really respect.
Speaking of up front, you started up front on the day, and we saw you lead for a good bit, but then immediately fell on the way back. Was it a strategy to qualify up front and try and stay up front, or were you just running with the punches, maybe going to the back, trying to relax there? How did you try and navigate the entire 100 laps of this race? Because to be up front at the end, you needed to survive all 100 laps.
For me personally, like, I just wanted a up front pit stall. Not too far up front, but it turned out, well, first box was going to be the way. And if we could have like a yellow flag, I felt like that tiny little hole from that to the pit line would give me some spots on pit road exit. So that, I think, helped here and there. Like, I was able to gain 1 or 2 spots. For me, once I got up, like, once I queued first place, I just kind of fell to the back really, really early and just sat there. Because the trucks, mile and a half and restrictor plates just get really, really wobbly when you're getting pushed. So I kind of expected there to be at least 1 or 2 wrecks. So I just stood in the back with my teammates Cody, Justin, and Derek. And I felt like it was a good strategy, and it turned out to be the best one at the end.
And we're heading to the Darlington Raceway in 2 weeks' time. Do you think you might have a little bit more confidence in the 5 there? Because even though you got a great finish of second place here at Talladega, do you think maybe you'll have an even better finish, maybe possibly get your first win of the season when we head to the Darlington Raceway?
Darlington has never been a really good track for me. Like, last year I was top split for that, and I qualified mid-pack. And I was able to get up to like 8th or 9th, and I got a little bit of damage from a wreck, and still was able to salvage 14th. So if I do end up going to Darlington, I don't know yet if I'm running or not due to some unforeseen circumstances, but with the way the points are, I was 400 heading into here. First 3 races I had completely different issues in all 3, and to be able to get a second and get it second to a teammate was really cool.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here on Podium Esports. That is Jarrett Liebert in the 5. Second place finisher to Derek Bordeaux today here at Talladega. And James Pike, it was a good day for him, up and down, but he ultimately ended up at second place.
He ends up in second place. Carson Hocevar comes home with a third place finish. And Carson, after the last few weeks, it's been rough. It's been sort of rough and tumble for you. You've been all over the place and in a lot of action over these last 3 races. So to get a good finish like this, how big is that for you?
I mean, it's always, fun when you run up front, and not to be at the center of attention or not the face on the punching bag's nice now, at least this week, but. No, it was fun. We did the strategy with the Horizon guys. I saw them and, asked the Legacy guys. They did a hell of a job working on these cars all year, and I asked them if they wanted to do it, and we kind of followed suit. And then it was a race after that first yellow, and I was like 20th and just picked the right lines and was able to run in the top 3 to 5 the last, 10 so laps, and really was the difference maker.
So you guys had a sort of an alternative strategy earlier on where you all came down pit road earlier. What was the logic behind there? Was that something planned long in advance that you guys practiced for, or was that just a last-second decision of trying to mix up the strategy?
Well, to be honest, like they did all the testing. The first lap I had on the race set was, in the race. So we kind of knew that there was a lot of different options, and I liked that option the best. And I kind of knew Seth was always going to be the one to kind of initiate that oddball strategy. He did something at Daytona last year with it, and I got the bad end of the stick, so I was sure not to let that happen again. And the whole goal was it was just faster overall. We could just go hard the whole race, and everybody else was having to save. We were 2 to 3 seconds faster a lap. That was just made more sense to do it that way.
Well, it looks like it worked out well for you. Who do you have to thank here for getting you out on track and having a good run here tonight?
Obviously Boyd Hogan, everybody at, Bobby Earnhardt Legacy, they do a hell of a job. I'm not on here a whole lot, so I don't get time to test or practice or really work on the sets no more. So to be able to kind of go in and just drive and hopefully not make a fool of myself, is really fun. So I thank them for putting up with me and let me, kind of come out here and have fun and drive a little bit.
Well, looks like it worked out well for you with a third place run here tonight, pushing there at the end. Congratulations on a third place finish.
Yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for broadcasting all here. It's fun to watch.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining in.
Carson Hocevar, your third place finisher this evening, and a lot of action that we can recap at Talladega as we start to wind down our coverage. Josh Lee, one of those wild cases where we said coming into tonight's race that we thought there was going to be a big incident. We figured that at some point there would be a big one, and yet at the end of it, there were a few little incidents here and there, but that 15-20 vehicle pileup that we figured was going to show never really did at the end of the day.
It didn't, but we also saw a lot of great saves and a lot of wrecks that could have been a lot worse. But like we mentioned a lot, this is the top of the top when it comes to drivers trying to qualify for eNASCAR. We already know the Coca-Cola Series is the cream of the crop, but this is just right under that in the future of that series. So these drivers have great spatial awareness. They know how to avoid incidents, and we saw a lot of wrecks that could have been 15 to 20 car pileups end up being one car spinning down to the infielder at some point, absolutely no cars spinning at all, everybody getting it saved. So I think that is a testament to what these drivers know about their cars and what they know about their awareness on the racetrack to be able to avoid incidents like that at a track like this.
And Jeff McConey, we mentioned it again coming out of Talladega, we'll say it again, Derek Bordeaux entered Talladega and leaves this track in an even better position in the points than he did coming in, which is not what you expect. But then again, outside of the really close finish, this race was a little bit unexpected tonight. We saw the strategy from the Logitech G Altus esports drivers, which ultimately didn't pan out, but it had its legs. You could see the logic in it. We had all sorts of great racing, a lot of great saves from everybody, and it was a bit of a different race compared to what we normally see here in that regard.
I guess the biggest surprise of Talladega was that there really weren't any surprises, which is very strange to say. We were expecting a big one. You know, I said earlier on, it's not a question of if, but when. And surprise, Talladega's full of them. We didn't get a big caution. We really only had a few minor incidents, and I say minor, we still ended up with a few that wrapped up 5 or 6 trucks, but it could have been a lot worse. And it seems like the driver that caught the shortest end of the stick there was Larry Pace. He ended up going down pit road, wrecking down pit road, and ended up about 14 laps down. So that's very unfortunate. But yeah, everyone was very clean for the most part. Everyone was very aggressive, though. I mean, we were 3 and 4 wide at some points for multiple laps at a time, and everyone did a really good job running it. But like you mentioned, Derek Bordeaux came in as the points leader. He's leaving with an even bigger lead. Sure does feel good to be king. I can imagine he is feeling very confident going into these next few races. He doesn't have much to worry about at all.
And we head in 2 weeks' time to a track where if Talladega is sort of the roulette wheel of racing, we're going to head to pretty much the complete opposite side of that spectrum. Darlington Raceway will be where we run round 5 of this eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. And that is one of the old stalwart tracks of NASCAR. We know about the history, we know about the heritage that it has, but it's a place where it's so unique in its design and the way you run it that you can't cheat excellence at Darlington. You either learn the line, learn how to run that place, learn how to manage your tire wear, in particular over a long green flag run, and figure it out from there, or you just don't have any skill and you end up running poorly. There's not really any variance, and there's a pretty strong correlation between how talented you are as a driver and how well you tend to run at the Lady in Black. How that pans out, we'll have to wait and see what happens in 2 weeks' time. But before we get to that race, some action that we can tell you about in the world of Podium Esports and iRacing coming up over the next few days. Sunday night, we're back on air with the MPI Cup Series at Bristol Motor Speedway. It's the final race in their regular season. We find out which 4 drivers join the 12 that have already qualified to make the 16 driver playoffs. You'll see that broadcast this Sunday night right here on the Podium Esports Twitch channel at 9:15 p.m. Eastern. The next day at 8 p.m. Eastern, it's Anthony Alfredo's Esports Racing League season finale from Auto Club Speedway in the Xfinity cars. We're going to find out which one of Adam Cabot or Presley Sora, or maybe somebody else, barring the unexpected, ends up winning the title and advancing into Season 3 of Monday Night Racing, which is just around the corner as well. That'll start on May 3rd, but you'll see the finale of the ERL next Monday night, April 26th, 8 p.m. Eastern, also here on the Podium Esports Twitch channel. Then Tuesday night, it's the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series from Kansas Speedway. Their season continues. Pre-race starts at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Race coverage at 9. You'll see that on iRacing's Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube channels. And then PCA Sim Racing goes with Series 6 back in the main game. They go, and back with the 911 GT3 Cup cars, they go to Road America. You'll see that broadcast at 8 p.m. Eastern next Wednesday, April 28th on the PCA Sim Racing YouTube channel, twitch.tv/Podium2, and the Podium Facebook and Twitter pages. Also got action from the Dirt Sprint Car Championship Series from Lernerville, and then that aforementioned race round 5 of round 1, or race 5 rather, of round 1 of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series from Darlington Raceway. That's our next race in this series, and you'll see coverage of the top splits 9 p.m. Eastern Thursday, May 6th on twitch.tv/Podium Esports, with coverage of the second split of that race over on twitch.tv/STN_racing. Time to close out our coverage of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series from Talladega Super Speedway, where Derek Bordeaux is a winner in the top split for the second time this season. For our team at Podium Esports, Gary Sexton, Sisto Scaramuccia, John Theodore, Tyler Hudson, and all the folks at iRacing that helped to organize this, for our producer this evening, Ryer Bauer, our camera builder, Dougie Beard, and for my colleagues in the booth, Josh Lee and Jeff McConey, I am James Pike, the voice of Podium Esports. Thank you so much for watching our broadcast of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series, and we look forward to seeing you at the beginning of the month of May from the track to Talladega, Darlington Raceway.